Thanks, Kay. So thanks for agreeing to meet with me to go through some key differences in deaf education that you've noticed in your time. So, how long have you been working in deaf education for?
Oh, that's a really good question. It was towards the end of 19 1980, the 1980s. So somewhere like 1987, 1988, somewhere
Yep.
around there. So yeah, since last century is what I tell
Yeah.
people. Yeah. So it was the time that I came in was when Tomorrow Schools came in. I don't know
Yes.
if you know,
Yeah.
yep, that policy, how that came in the ministry, the
That was
Department of Edu
1989.
Yep, so the Department of Education kind of stopped, and the Ministry of Education kind of came into being, I suppose. So schools had more autonomy over their yeah, what they were doing and that kind of thing. I think prior to that, something that was quite important for deaf education was that, and continues now, is that we were very well supported. The principal at Van Ash, and I mean, I can only talk from Van Ash sort of perspective in the southern region, was very, very good at getting things established and getting things going and setting up and getting funding to set things up and that kind of thing. It's around the time when the deaf units started.
Yes.
So, yeah, so schools, mainstream schools that had a unit attached specifically for deaf and hard of hearing students. So it kind of was that first step, I guess, moving into mainstream. Um, once the whole kind of bulge from rubella had gone through, which was kind of 1970s,
Mm.
and then it kind of, yeah, so it changed the look of deaf education. So yeah, it's really kind of hard to say what the key differences are. I guess it's reflected in society and it's reflected in which education does, what's happening in the community, because obviously New Zealand Sign Language has become an official language within that time, and the whole like the start of the 1980s was signed English. And when I came in, that was still a thing. So it was signing in English word order using signs and what's it, a sign system for all of the functional words like
Yes.
the and
And
and an and
did
yeah.
did deaf people with fluent signers use that outside of school?
Well, yeah, it kind of became an influence, and it still is in New Zealand Sign Language, because you'll have signs that have kind of been adapted and used. And if we go back a couple of steps before they came in with New Zealand Sign Language, having New Zealand Sign Language and using it in education, when at the end of 1979, they kind of, and leading up to 1980 when Signed English came in, um, the deaf community were canvassed, and it was kind of like, okay, so we want to use signs, we'll use what you guys use. And the deaf community were like, well, we don't have a language, we don't have a sign language. And that's where they were at in terms of their understanding of what New Zealand Sign Language was, what they were doing with their signing, because up till then it had been so oral, and the whole ethos was that you don't sign, you talk. That when people went to the deaf community and said, well, we'll use your signs, they, well, we don't we don't sign, we don't use signs. So they were kind of like, well, hold on. So that's why they went to Australia and picked up the signed English sign system. So that's where we got, and so that influence has come in terms of prior to that, it was like red, green, blue, yellow. That was they were all the colours were all the
Yes,
same
and I heard
sign.
with place names like Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, a
Yeah, yeah,
person.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there were, and it was a lot of emphasis on the lip patterns and that kind of thing. So it absolutely changed New Zealand sign, added to New Zealand Sign Language and changed the focus. But um, so it wasn't till a few years later that people kind of got the idea that actually what we do have is a language. So, and we do have a culture, and but at that point there wasn't. Um, and now, I mean, we had 1989, we had the World Deaf Games in Christchurch, and that was another huge eye opener for the deaf community and influenced deaf education as well, because it was kind of like started asking some questions like, oh, okay, the fact that we've got deaf sports groups, what's all that about? And kind of so that, yeah, obviously influenced students in terms of people starting to look overseas and kind of exploring, okay, so what is this deaf culture stuff? What's this deaf identity? And something that we did do in that time, and I know leading up to the 2000s, was that we had people come from overseas who would come and do like mini lectures and things, and come for a week. And we had Connie Mayer, who was involved with the writing program that we used to have, where we had the writing exemplars, and that.
Yes. Yeah.
So she came and talked in at Kelston and talked in Wellington and Christchurch, and so we had experts from overseas. We had quite a few different ones that came through, and I think that influenced deaf education in terms of opening us up to what's out there and what's happening. So yeah, and that has kind of reflected in our practice and what is best practice for us now.
So do you see like what would be like really positive changes from how maybe even how deaf saw themselves or deaf culture or NZSL in the past and now like what's more positive and then later what's not?
Yeah. So the when I was my first couple of years of teaching um, in Kelston, and I mean I don't know the dates, but in Kelston and in the Van Ash at the base schools, they started bilingual classes.
Yeah.
So I was in a bilingual. I was, had the bilingual class with another deaf teacher with Anne Croy, and so we were teaching the young children, and so we were kind of working out how to work in a bilingual context within like not the next year, but the following year. It was kind of like, well, actually, you know what? We're not going to have bilingual classes. Everyone is going to incorporate bilingual practices. I feel like it's taken till now, or not that not that long ago, that we're actually are seeing more. There's been lots of talk about how New Zealand Sign Language is important, and how giving the students options and choices about what they want to do, which they prefer, or utilizing everything that's in the kitty, and having options, not choosing. Very much when I started, it was a choice. Do you use New Zealand Sign Language or do you use spoken English? and never the twain shall meet. It was like either or.
Oh,
And there was a lot of research done, a lot of talk around what the benefits of each and what would is more important for deaf and hard of hearing students, whether they, to be able to speak and have oral language or to have sign language. So fortunately, that's all gone. Those sorts of discussions and scenarios have gone, and it feels now much more like here are all the options, here are all the choices. Pick what suits your child or your student for now, and if that changes, that's fine. These are, giving you options. Um, of course, technology's changed hugely over that time from hearing aids and not particularly good hearing aids, um, the FM systems. So they've changed and it's much more cochlear implants, implanting early, the RMs, so the remote mics, as opposed to because the FMs could have pick up radio frequencies. So you could be if you were using the FM, the student could be picking up a radio station or a TV channel or something and listening to that and not you. So yeah. I guess the other thing, something else I was going to add in there, something brilliant, clearly not. Um, yeah, so just over time, things have just changed hugely, in terms of
with
giving.
when the cell phones came out and you could start to text, did you notice a difference with teenagers being able then to text hearing people or their friends? Did,
Yeah. I guess. Um, Probably not so much in the educational context
no,
because I mean certainly having computers and like the starting off like very early on with the Apple and that kind of stuff. So that was very early on and using that technology and yeah, the access now to videos as before we would take photos. Like when the students were doing a story, Anne and I would have them there. And I mean, we had video cameras, but they were like
yeah,
huge and cumbersome and all that sort of thing. And we would take photos of them signing their story, each sign, and we'd put that on a strip and then work with the student to work out the English. So we had the signing and then they had an English translation underneath it. So the technology's just moved on so much from that. And yeah, it's way more efficient and that kind of thing. So that certainly helped a lot. Yeah, I mean, talking about like in the community and that sort of stuff, it was the TTYs and the fax machines and things like that, which yeah, they were impressive at the time, and that changed the dynamics of communication and not having to when you met a deaf person and before you left, you had to organise the next time that you were going to meet them and where and when and have that all organised because there was no way to contact them in the interim, sort of to say, and if something happened and that person couldn't make it, you just turned up and they weren't there. And after half an hour, it's like, oh well, and you just kind of so faxes meant that you could fax somebody in the morning and say, hey, should we catch up for lunch or that kind of thing. So yeah, and obviously cell phones will be doing the same thing in videos and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm sure it must
yeah.
have made an impact.
And so, what are some things? You know how you throw out the baby with the bathwater. What things have we dropped that were better in the past?
Um, yeah, that's a really hard question to kind of
Good
answer.
then. That's good if it's hard. That means
Yeah,
everything's better in the truth now.
yeah, 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 yeah. I guess, yeah, I guess the connection now is just so much harder because we are one school throughout the Motu, and having that connection between teachers. We used to. I'm not sure if this happened in the northern region, but in the southern region, we used to get together once a year and have cluster meetings. So all of the teachers all over New Zealand, all over the southern area, Lake Taupo South, would come to Christchurch. So we'd have opportunities face to face to meet with people and make those connections and have that, and oh, what are you doing there and what are you doing there, and that kind of thing. I know we have the Zooms now and we can make that contact. But yeah, just kind of doesn't feel the same. It's not yeah. I mean, we do have the regional hui's now in particular areas, so that's good to have kind of some more of that contact back, and that yeah, so that's always been really valuable. Um, yeah, because you don't really know what other people are doing, but yeah, it's making sure that those connections are strong, and face to face is probably a really good way to do that, and then have the the Zoom contact and all that kind of thing. So
Because I was literally having a similar conversation. I wasn't interviewing someone like this. It was just another conversation with someone else, and they said exactly the same thing today. So it must be the theme. But it's true. Like I was even, you know, what's been gained by going to one school, what's been lost, and what's the
mm.
difference, Don't know. In terms of like NZSL in society, have you noticed like more people learning it than, I say more hearing people learning it than they used to in the past, or
Yeah, yeah,
not?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's definitely much more accepted. And I mean, obviously, within the job I'm doing now with New Zealand Sign Language at schools, getting out into schools, a few years ago, it was kind of like you'd have to explain. And, New Zealand Sign Language has just become an official language, or is an official language. And, that's really great. And you'll be able to use it. But with the internet and with stuff that's out there, people can access it better. I have 5 grandchildren. All of them at school do NZSL. They'll have assemblies, and I'll get little videos of them. They're all signing songs in NZSL, and you go into an early childhood centre who may or may not have a deaf or hard of hearing student in there, and there's posters up, or there's they're using Good Morning for their morning routine, or that kind of thing. So it's definitely much more prevalent out there, and much more kind of accepted in terms of that yeah, it's just something that we do, and it becomes part of a school's culture,
Hmm.
and that they are using New Zealand Sign Language, not specifically for any student in particular, but it is something we do, and it's something that we
Hmm.
respect and all that kind of thing. So definitely the wider um, culture, and when you say, oh, I'm a teacher of the, oh, do you know sign language? Oh, yeah, I'd really love to learn, and all
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And oh, I know I can do coffee, that kind of thing. So yeah, you definitely do see much more of it. Yes, I mean that's definitely a positive. That has to be a positive, because it just becomes, yeah, normalized, I
Surprised
guess.
I'm doing level three sign language at Hagley at the moment, and I'm surprised there's only three of us, probably out of 30, that work at Katakaro. Like everyone's from all over the place doing and they're really good. They're really good signers. but they don't
Mm,
need it in their work. They don't.
right.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like who learns? Why do you learn? It's really interesting.
Yeah. And who are doing it for their personal,
Yeah,
interest as, learning another language and that kind of thing. I see within the deaf community, um, like just a recognition and an acknowledgement of sign language has really helped a lot of students in terms of and people in the deaf community, that it is acknowledged and that they see it in the environment and they see it on TV, and that New Zealand Sign Language Week should be every week, not just once a year, that kind of thing. But there is more recognition, and like if they are signing, people aren't kind of look at them and going, what the heck's all that
yeah,
about? And and feel like people are looking, going, oh, okay, yeah, and not making, not kind of excluding them or thinking they're doing something weird or strange and that kind of thing. So, yeah, so it certainly has helped a lot of a lot of students and a lot of deaf adults kind of go, okay. Oh, so people are accepting it, and it is part of what we do and who we are, and it's not just this weird thing that we do. It actually is, actually is important. Something that I would like to, that has never ever been very good, and I think it would be really important to develop and improve, is the relationship between the deaf community and deaf education. It's always been fraught. My mother, till the day she died, so from 1979 till a while ago now, 10 years ago now, she would always say to me they should never have pulled the old building down. So where the steps are, the big old building that was an earthquake risk and was drafty and cold and hard to heat and full of like whole lot of little rooms like a rabbit warren. I should never have pulled it down, and would always be asking me, so what are the deaf children doing? What's the deaf school doing? And then shake a head, or so I think that would be fantastic if there was a better relationship between the school and the community, because every other school, well, this is quite generalistic and it's quite simplistic, but other schools have a PTA, they have the board of trustees, they have people who are all supporting the school and helping, and thank you, and they work together because it's a common goal for the students and everything. But it seems to me like with the deaf community and deaf education, it just seems like a competition, and it just seems like a war where anything that we're doing is not right, and it's very negative, and yeah. I mean, you see what happens in the media and things like that, and on social media, that to have a better relationship so that we can work together for the benefit of the students would be fantastic. I think that would be really something, a
quite
real
tricky because
important
we all
thing.
have the same end goal. Everyone's doing it for the same reason. It's
Yeah,
just people have the different views of how it should be
yeah,
done. And
yeah,
also, like I went to a community meeting in Christchurch, which was quite a tricky meeting to be at. And, they were getting deaf community members. They were hearing, most of them that got up, that were really angry. They have deaf children, but they were saying things like, we don't care if the teachers are registered or not. We want deaf tech. We do want just want deaf people, and we want people to use sign language. We don't care if they can teach. And we're a school. We
yeah,
have to employ teachers, and we're a specialist school, so you need a specialist teacher. And we've got the provision that a if a teacher is deaf, they can start with us straight away. We'll take beginning teachers who are deaf. But if they're not deaf, then they can't come to us when they're beginning teachers. They have to go and do 2 years experience and then come. But the community can't see that. They're like, oh, you don't employ any deaf teachers. Yes, we would, and we do. But sometimes deaf teachers may not want to actually work here. We don't know.
Well, that policy has only been that policy is only recent, and
Yeah,
we haven't actually got an example of that
not yet.
happening like that,
No,
because prior to that there were at least half a dozen people that I know of that would have been fantastic sign language, deaf, or prior interpreters prior to that, and would be absolutely fantastic, but they weren't employed, or and so yeah, so it's all very well saying that's the policy, but we haven't seen there's nothing that to back that up by saying, oh
no.
yeah, and so now we've got so and so and so and so and so and so
I know it's
working for
tricky
us.
because
So yeah, so I think there are faults on both sides. There are,
there's
there's
misinformation and there's misunderstandings and it's just very difficult. And I think so. I've thought about it a lot, and why is it this way? And I said to someone, I think it's because it's not just a school for the deaf community; it's a home.
yeah,
Lots of people that's where they lived, and that's their
mm,
connections at school were like a family.
absolutely,
And so
absolutely. Yeah,
it's like your house. Who's living in my house now? How are they? It's
yep.
much deeper than a school. So everyone's emotions are a bit stronger.
Definitely, definitely. The connections, which it would be because not only were they living together for all that time,
Yeah,
all boarding at the school, um, they also had communication with each other. Whereas when
that's
they
right.
went home,
They
they didn't.
didn't. No,
So even when they were in their own homes with their own families, they were there, but they weren't connected. They weren't,
no. Yeah.
sort of part of what was going on. It was all done to, not, with and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so even when they were at home,
Mm.
you know,
So I
yeah, they
noticed that with my
at,
husband's uncle was deaf, and he'd be with us all at the Christmas, but he really wanted to leave. You could see he was itching, and as soon as dinner was done, he was out and he was off to the deaf club or something,
yeah,
because people didn't sign in the family. Because he grew up in the time where you didn't sign. He went to
yes.
Finish as a boy. He would be like 85 now,
Oh,
be
okay.
88.
What's
So
his
yeah,
what's his name? Because
last name Alan, last name
yeah,
Alan,
yeah, yeah.
Bruce, Bruce.
Bruce Allen. Okay, yep, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, and my parents similarly, that whole thing of no, no, we don't sign, we just talk. But while
yeah,
they're flipping, while they're actually signing, no, 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 we don't sign. No, 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 no. We talk, we lip
yeah.
read and we talk, but no, 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 never, never, never sign. Okay. You say so, but yeah, yeah. So, but that was because that was what was drilled into them. That
I
was
know.
what,
Yeah, because
that.
I couldn't understand why my husband's family, no one had learned sign language. So, oh, this is like
Hmm.
terrible. So I went and learned, and my husband as well, and he gave me my sign name.
Ah,
And then when I was signing with him, he was really, yeah, appreciative of it, which was before
yeah.
I came to Kotakato. But yeah, it's just interesting the dynamic and cultural shift. Um, and sometimes too, people don't want to. What's the word for it? Are the deaf community open to a positive relationship, or is whatever comes out just going to be terrible because of all the trauma in the past
Mm.
and all the terrible things that have happened? I don't know if, well, it's not everyone, is it? Some people, just a small minority, no matter what you say, it's just
Hmm.
they're not receptive either. It's quite a tricky, but loads of parents, loads of community members are very positive.
Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting dynamic, but yeah, it's that kind of like hearing people were up here and deaf people were down here, and that was they accepted their lot. And if I think of my parents' generation that came through, that was true for a lot of things. Women were down here and men were up here. Workers in factories and things were down here, and the white collars were up here.
Farm owners
So
are up here.
yeah, so there's always, and so that was just the way it was.
Mm.
We're deaf, and these are hearing people, and they know better than us, and we don't know anything, and they know everything, and they're telling us we have to talk, so we talk, and even though that they didn't, but yeah, things have come a long way, and I guess it's like anything, just feels like we could be, doing so much more. But yeah. And it'll be interesting to see the impact of having a deaf principal, what impact that makes,
Yes,
moving forward. Not that one person can do everything,
yes.
but
But I think having a board, an elected board and a deaf principal, I've noticed the social media's died down. Maybe because people have to have code of conduct. If you're on the board, you can't. You have to sign your code of conduct. That could be part of it, but um, definitely the noise is quieting down a wee bit, I think. Mm. I'm going to wrap up now, Kay, because I've taken up half an hour of your time. Thank
no
you
problem. Good as
so
gold.
much. It was so interesting.
Hopefully you can unpack
Yes,
something from that, find something
definitely.
useful in amongst that garble that I've
No,
just
it was great. And
put out there.
it totally followed things that I'd read about, like the deaf games and things like that. So, no, yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, see
Take
you
care.
later.
See ya.
Bye.